The ModernJeeper Show, the show about Jeeps, Jeeping, and Jeepers.
Well, hey, Modern Jeepers, it's another episode of the ModernJeeper Show with me, Matson from MetalCloak, and Mr. Modern Jeeper, Corey Osborne.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, Rockstar Jeep Rose back.
Hi.
How are
Hey,
you?
that color looks good on you. I really like it.
Well, thank you. You know, when I'm bedridden and have my foot in a cast and not supposed to move, I still got to look good.
Yeah.
What a funny twist of events the last few weeks have been.
Oh, it is. And to all of our listeners, hope you enjoyed our little flashback episode last week. We're actually recording this like only a couple days later because you guys are about to leave. We'll talk about what you've been involved, but you're about to go off again. So let's just go back. So what have you been doing for the last 3 weeks? I mean, it's been a whirlwind. Like we kind of did a show last week. It has been
a whirlwind. You know what's really funny is how many people that still come up to us and go, "Hey, we really love listening to your podcast." And I just look at them and I go, "Really?" Wow. It's been so awesome. Yet, as we've talked in the past, we are in a whirlwind. We just finished the Tillamook Modern Jeeper Adventure event, which was amazing and awesome. We drove back across the country after being in New York and Bantam for a couple of events. We were home a couple of days. We took off and we headed north to Wyoming and Montana. And I got to tell you, and we'll talk more about this, but other than the lack of good sleep, cell service,
all the things,
all of that stuff.
It was amazing.
I'm going to put this out there right now. Wyoming, the Morrison Jeep Trail, comparable, in fact, probably better scenery than the Rubicon Trail.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
But that comparable, that kind of wheeling?
It's, yeah.
Wow. And how long is the trail?
22 miles.
22 miles. And we had a very small group of overland rigs that we took up there in coordination with Ricky from Jeepers Den and some of his group and his followers and his family. We met some amazing people. Shout out to, I'll do this right here. A shout out to Alex from Gladiator Brothers.
Yeah.
A shout out to Ben and Selena, husband and wife duo that came out. All these people came out from Florida.
Wow.
Peter, the beekeeper, Carl and Steve. Yes, he handles all the bees for Ricky's plantation out there in Florida.
Right.
Carl, the analyst. I don't know what else to call him. Such an amazing, smart guy.
We have other names, but
no, I mean these guys were top notch. Steve, who's been running around with Ricky for a long time.
Pam,
first timer wheeler. An interesting group and a plethora of experience, but an all around really good. You know what? We went from 8 a.m. every day until sometimes 8 or 10 o'clock every night.
Wow.
It was amazing. We went and did some amazing things, visited some amazing places. ModernJeeper.com will definitely showcase some of those places. I put a little teaser up today on my personal page, shared it to Modern Jeeper. The National Museum of Military Vehicles is located in Du Bois, Wyoming.
There's a National Museum of Military Vehicles.
It just opened last year, just about last year.
2 years ago, guys, a private owner, he's paid his own money. Now he's got some grant stuff going on as well, but we're talking about 140,000 square foot indoor facility
It's amazing.
So this is one of those guys that has historically had a big piece of property and just kept buying shit and actually turned it into something.
Yes.
As opposed to just keeping it on his land, and people thought, who's the weird wacko down the street collecting all the military stuff?
Oh, but the
This guy
wacko knows a lot.
into a legitimate museum.
The guy down the road that collects stuff like Huey helicopters and Sherman tanks.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
The entire Jeep history is within his facility, and he's got copies, or not copies, he's got the original Jeeps historically from every single period.
Wow.
Yeah. It's amazing.
That's incredible.
There are Ford Jeeps, there are AMC Jeeps, there are Jeeps, there's every Jeep. There are tanks. There are tanks from other countries. There are rocket launchers, helicopters, half tracks.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And the setup inside of each individual era of the wars it's breathtaking, it's emotional, makes you feel like you're there in the war. It's
in Du Bois, Wyoming.
In the middle of nowhere.
Wow, that's incredible. So, man, we should try to get that guy. Did you actually meet the guy?
We did. He actually did a walkthrough tour. I don't know how often he does that, but we were fortunate enough to be there when he was there and on site, and he gave a guided walking tour through his collection and what he's acquired. An extremely smart man. If he wasn't a history teacher, he should be, because he knows aspects of each and every war, the vehicles that were used, the manufacturing process that went behind the United States' evolution of military vehicles. It was great.
Wow.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting too, to just discuss like the evolution of World War II. It's kind of that line out there in Ford versus Ferrari.
Yes.
Movie where Henry Ford Jr. is standing out there and saying, man, we built thanks to the war. We converted. We can do anything. We can win this race. We can do anything.
Funny thing is we were on our way to meet Ricky at the property we were staying at, and we passed this place, and we did, oh my God, U-turn and went around, and we were like, well, we got to meet Ricky, but we could not stop because Ricky hasn't told us what we were doing.
Yeah, we were all kind of under this. We just weren't sure, other than the Morrison Jeep Trail, what was going on. So we made a U-turn. We went in. We spent about an hour and a half running through the place, basically taking some photos, and then we were going to leave. As we were leaving, the rest of the entire group was already in the parking lot, and they were already inside.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, cool. Well, geez, you have to put that in the show. Let's put it in the show notes. Make sure people get a link to that.
Yes.
It's an amazing thing about our country. Even here in Sacramento, like people come to Sacramento specifically for the Railroad Museum and the Old Town Sac, and for even the Capitol, and you kind of forget where you live sometimes as an attraction for others, right? But it's an amazing thing about this country, what you can find when you travel, and it's that whole idea that you can go out there and you guys are so fortunate to be able to go out there and travel across and stop someplace in the middle of no place and go, hey, let's check out this museum. The Air Museum, which I don't think you've done yet up in Tillamook, but it's a basic museum, but it's cool. It's cool. It's got this old plane. It's got some stuff. And there's this one room where they've done all these like wooden models of pretty much World War II and everything that was happening in World War II. And you just walk through and see this whole timeline and various battle zones, all about World War II. It's just little tiny wooden models done together by somebody, right? But it's amazing what you can find. I think somebody should do a show about that. Oh, wait, people have.
And once again, we're continually blown away by everywhere we go. When we're driving down an interstate and people wave from the Jeep community, that Jeep wave, it's just so interesting to me. And I always wonder, are when there's somebody next to us or in a different kind of car, and they're like, how come everybody keeps waving at these guys? I don't know. I wonder if they realize that, oh, they're all in Jeeps. That's weird that they all wave to each other. Huh.
And I still wave at Jeeps when I'm driving my big truck too.
That's the hard part to remember what you're in, right?
You're right.
Right, you're driving in the minivan, you see a nice Jeep, you go wave it like that guy's wondering what the hell I'm doing. Right?
Yeah. Oh,
It's still a Chrysler.
Yeah, right. Can't we wave to each other?
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of that TikTok video that came out. Some dude, he's all whiny. He's like, I can't handle this. I can't handle this.
Yep,
I bought a Jeep to be anonymous, and all you guys waving at me. I can't do it. I can't do it.
I don't know why, but it reminds me of we did come across a parking lot in the middle of Yellowstone, and it had bus parking spots. I don't know why it's reminding me of it, but it's a joke that I've told for many, many years, and it just it made me laugh because here in all these bus parking spots was a Subaru. And of course, in Yellowstone, it's full of Subarus because that's what you drive when you're in Overlander.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so we come up on this bus parking, and it says, and there's these Subarus parked in these bus parking spots, and I'm like, but it's okay because Subaru backwards is you are a bus.
Ah. See. Yes.
Yeah. Probably my worst dad joke ever.
Well, John, who has the nice JL, right? And he just he had an accident with a deer in his, I think it was a Toyota Corolla or whatever else he had, and he ended up getting a Subaru. So he's got a nice Subaru, but it's the I forget what version it is. Pretty nice Subaru. It's special edition. Kind of got some orange tints to it. It's a nice car. Like it's got some decent room inside of it.
Yeah.
And I had an aunt who had a WRX. It's kind of funny. She posted on somebody asked a question like, "What's the fastest you've ever driven?" And she posted that she had driven on the 395 with a WRX. And yeah, I'm not supposed to repeat what speed she said. But they're nice cars. It's too many cars like that are taken over by the crumb munchers, granola crunchers. Yeah.
Well, and so I will speak to a little bit of the national parks because since I brought it up, man. So we entered in the east side, the east entrance of Yellowstone off the Beartooth Highway. Through Cook City, Montana, and the national parks, no different than California and no different than Colorado, and I'm guessing everywhere else on the planet right now, or at least in the United States, packed. People everywhere, lines of traffic. The Park Service, they were doing an amazing job of getting people through the lines. But again, everybody's outside, and kudos to everybody. I mean, I'm glad you're all outside, but now it's just back to that whole being respectful thing, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I haven't been to Yellowstone since I was a kid, 4th grade. And, it's hard to even think about going to these places like Yosemite or Yellowstone when the memories I have of them were of plenty of room, and there was a little bit of traffic, but it was all this room. And I don't like crowds. I don't like being places where crowds. Yet I've got to take my kids out to these places so they can enjoy them. But I have a certain antipathy to doing it because I don't want to be out at Yellowstone where it's a hour-long line to get through some place, and you go to see Old Faithful, and it's 10,000 people standing around or whatever it is.
Yep.
It's kind of insane, but I'm glad people are getting out and enjoying this stuff.
Right.
It's kind of insane.
It is insane.
It is insane. And we
dealt with it.
We dealt with it fine. And you got to time certain things and places you stay. What an amazing part of the country. And I actually had a conversation. I called up the Shoshone National Forest Service district office up there this morning because I wanted to make sure that not only were we following their guidelines and their rules, but that we were not doing things that we shouldn't be doing. And we're very focused on stay the trail and pulling permits where we should. And I just wanted to double check and verify that the Shoshone National Forest Service, those guys that's a huge chunk of property and it's hugely populated. And I talked to the local office in Cody, Wyoming, and I also talked to the district supervisor at the district office, and super helpful. But I wonder, I'm like, as I'm having this conversation, who else takes the time? And she was kind of blown away. She was like, you're asking all the right questions. Like, so it sounds like you guys already know what you're doing. And I'm like, well, I want to make sure that we're abiding by your local parks guidelines and all that. And she was like, she literally read verbatim the camping requirements and what they recommend. And it is National Forest Service, but a lot of people, they don't want people out just driving off the road, tearing across countryside. There is dispersed camping and they have some guidelines and some requirements. But again, who calls? Before you go out wheeling, do you ever call the local Forest Service?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
In Colorado, we don't because I kind of know what the rules are. But when we go to another area, I'm not sure. So why wouldn't we call?
And there's a number of people that show up and decide, hey, I'm going to go to the Fordyce Trail.
Right.
Well, there's a protocol to doing the Fordyce Trail. Part of that protocol is checking to see where the river level is because is PG&E doing heavy flow or not flow? If it's doing heavy flow, you're going to be one of those idiots going across the river who doesn't quite make it because your vehicle gets shoved down a little bit because it's too deep, right? But how do you know that, right? And thankfully, there's groups like Friends of Fordyce and the Rubicon Trail Foundation and others that try to keep their information posted and updated. But you're right, nobody does that. You're right. Nobody goes out there and just makes those calls.
It's kind of funny. Even when I was doing a lot of scuba diving, we would never go to an area we'd never been and just go jump in the water. We'd typically get with a local guide and have him give us at least some, hey, here's where you should go. Here's some things to see. And we would start there. But I think as easy it is, so this came about from spending some time with our friend Alex with Gladiator Brothers. He's from Venezuela and South America. And he was like, you guys have it so good. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you guys can travel anywhere you want to go. And I almost think it's a bad thing because we then just think we can go anywhere we want. And that's usually not the case, especially what's in the backcountry. And we've all fought hard to keep these trails open and stuff. And I got to tell you, the Morrison Jeep Trail, it is no joke. It is dangerous.
Very.
It is steep. The turns and the switchbacks are no different than Black Bear Pass here in Ouray, Colorado. For the exception of on Black Bear, there's really there's no buildup of rock on the edge. It's just basically straight off.
I thought Black Bear Pass was easier switchbacks than what we encountered.
Really?
Yeah,
way easier.
Black Bear, there's maybe 10, 12 switchbacks. The Morrison Jeep Trail, there's 27.
And they are off dropping, no backing up very much.
For a Gladiator,
crazy.
You're not only, there's no 3-point turns, it's 5 and 7-point turns.
Oh, wow.
You're really having to work your way around an edge. But
that was a long day then.
Actually, we did fairly well.
So there was 9 of us, 9 rigs.
Pam was the only one that was green, and she was terrified, but she thought it was godsend that I'd showed up. So I rode with her and taught her how to drive. She's never drove on rocks.
Wow.
Or anything like that. And they were like, well, you can take the bypass.
What was she driving?
It was a
JK.
JK.
She was in
JKU.
JKU.
I rode with her and taught her and kept her cool and encouraged her and told her what to do. And
I think
when
we
she
had
got
5 gladiators.
yeah.
Wow.
Five gladiators. JKU.
We had 2
TJ,
JKUs and a JL, and the rest were gladiators.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she was super excited. I think she cried a little bit, and we cheered and high-fived and hugged, and she did an amazing job, and she was so thankful. Yeah, it was a good time.
That's so cool to hear. That's awesome.
I got to tell you though, that trail is took us about maybe 3.5 hours to get up the switchbacks. About 3 hours, I guess.
Yeah, from
to get
the
up
bottom
switchbacks from
to
the bottom.
top.
But the trail's not done. You think, woohoo,
we're done.
We made it up the huge increase. And it's bumpy. It's rocky.
It's Rubicon.
It's the Rubicon for the next 8 hours.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what an exciting
bears.
night for you guys.
And bears.
Don't forget the bears.
There were bears. Good.
Oh, we saw some bears, but
Nice.
not where we were camping. That's what we were worried about. Everybody was, trying to do their
That's the hard part when you guys are
keeping the bears
overlanding.
away.
Overlanding with bears is not necessarily compatible.
Grizzly bears, no less.
Because bears like to open tin cans called cars.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and where do you keep your food? And because you can't really hang it, and you got to you don't bear canister it. And what do you do in those cases?
That's a good question. And even the park rangers were like, okay, well, just make sure you're being bear safe and bear aware. Put your stuff in sealed containers. Don't necessarily keep them near your tent. Things like that. But it was definitely a different perspective of Wyoming. And I'd been to Yellowstone before. And kind of blown through there this time. I don't know. Maybe it was because of the smoke from the wildfires, the sunset, the people we're with, all of that kind of stuff so came into play. And it was a good trip. In fact, I think that at some point in the future, there'll probably be a Modern Jeeper adventure through that area. I know that there's some other organizations that do that trip as well. I will tell you, if we ever do include the Morrison Jeep Trail as part of our adventure, it ain't going to be for the new Jeeper. It's all that.
Wow. Well, that sounds amazing. So you did the Morrison Trail. So that was last week, which I managed to pull out a podcast. I was trying to do the podcast, but because I was going into surgery on Thursday, Tuesday was a long day of just getting stuff done at the office and getting all these little projects done and things that needed to be done. And then Wednesday was kind of a partial day. And finally it was like, okay, I got to do it. So Wednesday night, I recorded the little intro and got that one up there. And I was torn between doing that one because of the San Juans of Colorado, because I thought it was a great episode. And one of my other favorite episodes, which also would have been appropriate, would have been the Rubicon Trail.
Sure.
That we recorded last year.
Yep.
Bob Sweeney, because after the Jeepers Jamboree had been closed. And right now we have Jeepers Jamboree. We had Will and Justin. Will took his JL in. Justin took the JT in last week for Jeepers Jamboree and had an incredible time. And then Scott Becker's in with the Cloak 3, which is our JK that now has a Hemi in it. We took out the LS, put the Hemi in. And Aaron's out there in the JL doing Jeep Jamboree, which is a small event, the family-oriented event. So that's get a lot of feedback. And I was going to try to get a little more feedback about how the trip was. But basically, it sounds like, obviously the Rubicon is the Rubicon Trail. Taking the Gladiator through the Rubicon is a different kind of experience.
Yes.
Justin had an interesting time with it. The only challenge you ran into is something that we're seeing a lot in Gladiators is because the sway bar on the Gladiator was more like a truck sway bar where the sway bar is on the axle and the links go up to the frame. The little cheesy hangers that Jeep puts there on the frame are breaking off.
Yep.
That's what happened on him. It broke off. Now we know our friends over at well, no longer Curry. It's now Rock Jock. They have a replacement with putting the anti-sway, whatever they call it, their system over there, anti-rock. Excuse me. Sorry, the meds messing with the head. They have an anti-rock system that you can put on the Gladiator that helps move that, and that's probably something we'll end up doing something over there because it just doesn't make sense. I understand why they do it, but it puts a lot more stresses on that cheesy little hanger. And so right around Buck Island, they had to go out and pull it off and try to fix it a little bit because it had broken off. And that's that. Other than that, Gladiator did phenomenal. Will's
so
Jeep,
even on my Gladiator, when Jeremy actually had it out at Death Valley for our event year before last, he had the welds were starting to give out on the sway bar. So literally, it's a pretty simple fix. If you have a welding, if you have a welder, you can actually just put another chunk of steel in there and fortify that hanger. Which I remember I was on a forum or something, and somebody was like, "Oh, they all break," and I'm like, "Well, that's funny. Mine haven't." And I went out in the driveway and was like, "Never mind." They had broken. They were just welded up and refixed. So
yeah.
Well,
for Justin's, it literally ripped down. It was it was like having a piece of paper. You pull it out of the 3-ring binder and it just rips out, right? So it was like ripped down. And we're gonna, we'll probably come up with a little fix for that, an aftermarket fix. We're also gonna come up with an aftermarket bracket just to help that. But it's just such a cheesy little thing. But these are the things you discover when you take them out and wheel them and play with them and ride them hard, and have fun with them. So, yeah,
I gotta tell you, the prototype ARS rack that I'm running on the Gladiator.
Yeah.
This was an interesting trip. So we didn't really have a base camp, but we kind of did for a couple of days. And a shout out to Sterling, a gentleman that we met that was a customer of Ricky's. We will talk more about him later. Has an amazing piece of property that we were able to base camp out of. And anyway, the ARS rack turns out it's such an amazing thing because even if people are base camping, we can literally pack everything up, leave a couple things behind, pack the tent up, the rooftop tent, and go, and still have storage space and still be able to carry all the things that we need in a different way, because a lot of people are still running some half height racks, which work really, really well. But we're not seeing a whole lot of wind resistance and all of those things that we were worried about putting up something really high on the Gladiator. That's just really has been a non-issue.
Well, I think part of that too is just the hard shell, the tent you have that has that kind of slope in the front.
Got a slope. Yep.
If you had a regular rooftop tent RTT, like one of the old style ones with the soft top wrapped around, you probably wouldn't want it up that high because you'd
it'd be like putting a little wall up on top of your Jeep, which they're so aerodynamic anyway.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So we have our system now.
We're getting better.
Everybody's impressed at how fast we can pack and unpack, and
so again, we get home.
You need to set up a GoPro and just do that.
We do
one day. You pull it in and just like setting up and tearing down.
Yeah.
So we actually did Alex with Gladiator Brothers, his YouTube channel. I'm sure he will have a little bit of us. So we did some comparisons. Ricky had his Gazelle tent, which was similar to what I used at Tillamook.
Mm-hmm.
Alex was running the original Gen 1 Smitty built tent on his Gladiator, and we had the Go Mammoth tent. And Alex ran around and caught all of us tearing down and setting back up and that kind of stuff. So I'm sure some of that will be coming out as well. We came, so it poured down rain the last day we were in Wyoming, and we got home and it rained and rained and rained. We're leaving in 2 days on Sunday for All-4-Fun, which is in Leadville, Colorado, highest city in the United States. We're at 10,000 feet. And we'll be staying in a tent. again.
For a week.
For at least 5-6 days. So it's funny though that we're not going to take the Gladiator because we'll have the CTI trailer there. Jesse's going to drive her JK over. I'm going to take the LJ. Leadville and the All-4-Fun event is such a good event. We missed it last year just because of COVID and whatnot. We're excited to go back over. The Mile High Jeep Club out of Denver puts a huge amount of effort into this event. The donations all go to support a hospital, and it's such a good event.
And this is when you guys actually put there's a little donation box out there too for.
Yep. We'll probably take donations for Stay the Trail.
Okay.
MetalCloak is actually going to sponsor a beverage night this year as part of what we typically donate to them. Those guys are awesome to us, and we feel like we need to give some of that back. And again, All-4-Fun, Leadville, Colorado it starts on this Sunday, and it's a week-long event. It won't end until the following Saturday. Vendor Day.
What days are the CTI out?
Yeah, so Vendor Day will be Wednesday, which, depending on how it goes this year, I always tell those guys, if there are times when people want to get on the trailer and everybody's off the trail and I'm running around, I'd be more than happy to run the trailer for whatever time frames that works. So, it'll be a good event. Know that we'll be sleeping on the ground, though, in a tent, so please be kind.
You guys got you have room. Just get one of those air mattresses, right?
Right. If I could just find one that would hold air. Now
it'll hold air for a week.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Buy a new one. It'll hold the air for the week, and you're fine.
I will say our friends at Camp Right, we have their self-inflating double mat, which a couple of breaths in it after it's self-inflated works really, really nice, and it doesn't lose air. Rolling that thing up
is fun. Is
a good time. You ever picture a couple people wrestling a monkey or I would say something else like something about a football, but trying to get that thing back in its bag.
Monkey football. My gosh. Visualize it yourself, guys. Monkey
You
football.
should have taken video of that. It is pretty amusing.
I'm like on the top of this thing wrestling with it, and it's an amazing mattress though.
It is good.
When it's flat.
Now, is that the one that you can leave it inside of the Go Mammoth when you're using that?
Well, so we put it inside the Go Mammoth tent so that there's something substantial in there rather than just a 1-inch mattress, and it works really well for that. But if we're going to be using the Jeep the next day, in and out, it's got to come out, and re-rolling that up is not very fun.
So I'm thinking, somebody needs to invent because that's the problem. Is what age gets you, right? Like I love camping. I go in the backyard with my kids on the grass out there to do backyard camping, and I know that the next day I'm going to hurt.
Yeah,
I'll put
totally. Yep.
Multiple layers of pads down, right? And I just my body can't handle it anymore. I hurt. The next day there's hurt points. It's okay. It's for the kids. I'm willing to sacrifice. But somebody's come up with a mattress that just engulfs you, takes you, lifts you up. I don't know, maybe a little massager built into it. Something to get you through the night.
Well, and I think that there are solutions out there. It kind of depends on just how much money you have and what you want to pay.
Right.
I mean, I looked at ThermaRest and even Camp Right. They have some thicker pads. But storage becomes an issue, and literally, I mean, if you want to spend a couple of $100 on that pad,
my ThermaRest I have is a $200 ThermaRest, which is not the top of the line. Like Scott Becker and Eric Ennis on our backpacking trips, they have the same style, the Neo Air from ThermaRest.
Oh yeah, the Neo Air.
But they have the $300 version or something, which has which is highly reflective, so it actually reflects heat a lot better, right? So it actually is better for the cold winters. Mine is just the $200 version, which still is just not quite enough. It's like it's Then again, I could probably lose a few pounds and maybe I'd be better for it. Who knows?
Well, I was telling somebody the other day, I'm like, really for me at the end of the day, when I'm really tired, I can sleep on the street. It really doesn't matter a whole lot to me. Will I pay for it the next day? Probably, but um, it was nice to actually get home and sleep in my own bed last night and
Yes.
go, oh, that's right.
I was still kind of
That's what this is like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how's that foot?
So I had surgery on Thursday. For all of our listeners, that out on Tillamook event, a 10-second decision to jump from one rock to a little ledge to another rock or to the sand resulted in my boot catching the edge of the rock I was jumping to. My boot and foot stayed while the rest of the body flew forward, causing a little rip. And everybody knows we've talked about this. I landed. I was very cool about it. Walked over to a rock, started massaging my calf, knew that something happened, limped my way back. As Corey has mentioned, I came over and got a couple ibuprofen and that's it, and just drove back and did work for the next 24 hours and then made it back in the ER. Anyway, long story short, finally had surgery yesterday. And I was even down to the wire. I was debating it. I talked to a doctor friend in Louisiana who works with athletes, and he does stem cell. So when he tries to do non-surgical solutions for things like that using stem cells, and others that talked about surgery, non-op, down to the wire, I was debating which direction to go. When it came down to it, is I have a 4-centimeter gap, which is a large gap, and it's very up high on my Achilles. It's not down below at that central area where most people have it pop. It's up high, so you have your ankle and you have your foot down, and it's probably about 4 inches above the ball of the ankle. So it's almost to where the calf starts to terminate and the Achilles begins. So, but it was a 4-centimeter gap. At that point, 2 centimeters, you can go non-op. 4 centimeters, it's 3 to 4 centimeters. It's just too big of a gap. It'll heal itself. You have big scar tissue there, it just will never function right.
It's a tendon essentially that's it's torn and it has separated that much.
Yeah, it is torn and separated. Now it is not disconnected. It is just torn, and the tear itself is that big. And there's already with scar tissue forming. I mean, it's been 18 days since I had done it before I finally had surgery. But because of that, I decided to go with the surgery, move forward. Had that done on Thursday, went to Mercy General here in Sacramento and got there about 7:45, got dropped off, wobbled my way in. By 9:45, 10 o'clock, I was getting gassed and put to sleep. I highly recommend everybody who gets surgeries not to do Versed. I've said this before, and I will advocate it. The forgetter drug, much better off without it. Didn't do the Versed. Woke up several hours later and being told that, I snore a lot because I had snored while I'm sleeping.
It's probably the most sleep you've gotten in like 3 months.
Exactly. And now I'm back here, and of course, I'm trying to get stuff done, and my wife's coming in here saying, elevate the foot, don't move, I'll get whatever you need. As she's yelling at the kids in the other room, I'm like, okay, I want to help her, and I can't because she's forcing me to make sure it heals right? Because, me, a tendency to get up and want to do stuff and help and other stuff. I'm like, So trying to keep it elevated the rest of this week or through next week, see how it is. It's supposed to be 2 weeks. Then the sutures get taken out. And then after that, it's a procedure of casts. So they'll put a cast on, and they do the whole thing where they bend out the toe of the foot, right? So there's putting it relieves the area around the Achilles by having the foot pointed out. And then over time, they change the cast like every 2 weeks. And then eventually I'll have the air boot.
So no physical therapy for a while then. Yeah,
the physical therapy doesn't happen until you're down to the air boot, and then you start doing some physical therapy and actually having to use it again.
Because I'm guessing that there's going to be some atrophy there that is going along with those muscles that is going to need some.
Well, it's relearning, and quite frankly, there's a little fear there too, right? Like it's that mental block of like, because when it first happened, and one of the reasons I had the 4-centimeter gap, I don't think I gave myself a 4-centimeter gap when I injured it. But twice I can recall where once was literally, I was standing by my Jeep, and I on Saturday night, and I went to go into the RV, and I wasn't thinking, and I just stepped on the step with the ball in my foot,
and just
it just gave, and I felt it all the way up the calf. And I know at that moment I damaged it more. And then when I had the problem with the RV and the Jeep and the Gladiator almost disconnected while being towed, I spent an hour and a half working on that. And the same thing, there was a point where I moved and I lost balance and I landed like, so I know those things exacerbated it. Had I just had the accident and was in a place where I could just go and say, okay, I better go to the ER and then have it wrapped up and then go see my surgeon, or go see the doctor a week later, I probably could have avoided anything else. But the circumstances, right? Having the Tillamook event go off the way it did was more important to me than the fact that now my 10-second decision to jump turned into, and literally it was that. It was like, I'll look at that. I can make that. That's cool. I'll do that. Yeah. And now I've got my foot and cast there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. Elevated. So
no, I it's kind of funny. I guess it's probably very similar for everybody who has ever hurt themselves. When I tore my ACL and my MCL and all that stuff, it was being dumb right out here outside my house. And I've lost control of my four-wheeler is what happened. And I jumped off of it and pop. And that's really all it was, like something just totally stupid. And it's kind of funny how we remember those things. It's probably similar to doing something stupid in your Jeep.
Yeah, right.
Where we always remember, that was what it was. Yes.
Yeah, usually it is something, but I've talked to friends who have had this happen or had something happen, and it was like, I was just playing basketball, or I was just doing this, or I was just literally like walking. I remember my medial meniscus on my right knee popped on me. Literally the day that happened, and I didn't have insurance at the time, so I never got it fixed. But I was just reaching into the back. I just started practicing for a marathon. This is like 2000. I was going to do one of these team and trainings for the American Heart Association in Jamaica. It was like one of these where you fundraise and you go down to Jamaica and do the marathon. It's a big fundraiser thing. And I was looking forward to it. I'm reaching the back of my Chevy Blazer that I had at the time, and it was like little balloons going off in my knee, just pop, pop, pop. 3 little balloons, pop, pop, pop. I was doing anything. It wasn't anything stupid. At least I have a story to tell with this one, right?
True.
It's a story to tell about my own stupidity and making a decision. But my 25-year-old self, this would have been a sprain. My 50-year-old self, it's a torn Achilles. So
it's funny how as I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about all those things that happen, whether it's a maintenance issue on our Jeep, whether you're towing a Jeep behind an RV. It's kind of funny. We look at something and we go, hey, that's not right. And yet it doesn't really, we see it. Our friends, David and Cammie Ebert, as they were going back from the Death Valley adventure, our friend Philip Thorpe, who was in the middle of the Death Valley adventure and had tire issues. David and Cammie had some leaking oil issues, and we see it and we go, yeah, that's weird. It's not right. But yet we move on. Mm-hmm. And then later it becomes, oh yeah, maybe I should have done something about that.
Right. Like I say, that thought going into my head is not right.
Right.
I need a little help.
Well, it's that recognition, right? Like, hey, you saw it, but you chose to just ignore it because you didn't think it was that important. And then later you're like, oh, I probably should have paid more attention to that.
And I think that's an interesting thing. Psychologically, you start looking at your mind, because I've seen this myself, and I've tried to change this recently. You're driving down the road, and there's an accident occurs, or something in the road, or there's something there, and there's my first instinct is always to help. But then you get into this thing. Well, the second thought is, but I'm late to my meeting, or I need to, or I'm hungry,
Right.
or I want to do something else, or and then you don't, right? Or other people always helping, right? And I recently kind of had a realization about that, because I used to be it was crazy. There was a point in time in my life where I was the first responder on all kinds of accidents, like just driving someplace. All of a sudden, an accident happens in front of me, and I'm the first guy on there, and that's what you did. Then it got to the point where it's like, oh, okay, other people are handling that. Other people are handling that, right? Just you're mentally changed because you get so busy, or you don't necessarily want to be the one helping. And so recently, I shift that around to the point where I was driving down the road, and something was in the middle of the road, and everybody's going around it. I stopped, put on my flashers, got out, moved it, right, and then got back in and kept driving. It's like, who's the guy? You have to decide, are you the one who is going to help? And the same thing's true about when you see something that you know is wrong. Instinctively, you know something is wrong. Instinctively, you can be the guy to do something about it, or the guy to ignore it.
That's
what
right.
do you want to be, right? And
there were 2 instances. We were heading up to Wyoming. We pulled into a gas station, and the gas station was packed. We were in the middle of nowhere. Where was that at? Or no, that was in Utah, wasn't it?
I think so.
Anyway, there was a rental car on the opposite side of the pump next to us, and I saw everybody get in, and the gas handle was still in their tank. And as I'm pumping gas, I watched the brake lights come on, and it happened so fast as the guy pulled away. And if you've never seen a breakaway gas pump, there's some little fittings on every hose that will they basically just pull apart under a lot of force.
Right.
And before I could really say anything or even do anything, I was watching it happen. And it was so bizarre as it fell out and the guy stopped, and then another guy was on the other side of him who was like, well, that's what they make the breakaway pumps for. And the guy was like, freaked out. He's like, it's a rental. I don't even know what I'm doing. And I wasn't, it didn't like, I couldn't have done anything, but the whole time I'm like, he's going to drive away. The pump's still in the thing. And there he goes. And, the second instance, we were coming into Cody, Wyoming, and we saw some black smoke up ahead. And Ricky got on the radio and he goes, so Corey, what's our protocol here if we come upon something? And I'm like, oh, absolutely. We should stop and put it out if we can, if it's a roadside fire or if it's a car on fire or whatever. As we come over the edge, there's 2 RVs pulled off the side of the road, and there's a very small fire starting. And there was 9 of us in well-equipped overland Jeeps. So we pull off. This fire's starting to get bigger and bigger. I took the water
on the
cans.
ground or where?
Yeah, on the ground in some sagebrush. And Ricky actually drove up, and we were trying to circle it and kind of create a path around it so it wouldn't. But it was so hot, and the wind was blowing, so it was just moving so fast. I took the water cans off the side of the Gladiator, and we were going to and I took the shovel off, and we were trying to get a hold of this thing, but the wind we had no chance. And we're looking at it. In the middle of where this fire started is a wheel and a tire. So here's the RV sitting on the side of the road. It had lost a wheel and tire off the trailer. It rolled out into the sagebrush, and that's what started the fire.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty crazy. And we tried to do everything, and then it was way too hot, and there was no way we could control it. Guys were on the phones with calling the fire department and 911, and wildland guys came out. And even the first 2 trucks that showed up from the fire department, they weren't able to do anything either. They had to wait for a tanker truck to come out with some water. But it was something so fast, and you can choose, right? There were people driving up and down this road. It was a major highway. You can choose to pull over and help, or continue driving on going, well, somebody else will take care of that.
Yeah, not my business.
Right.
Yeah, well, the modern Jeeper way is to help. We like
Absolutely. We tried. We really did. And
it was hot.
You're
it
to be
was
commended for doing
so
that.
hot. Yeah.
Because, I had to do firefighter training in the Navy. You don't know how hot a fire really is until you're standing 4 feet from it, even when you're fully suited up. Oh man.
I was a volunteer. I was a volunteer for our local district here, and
that's right.
Yeah, through our training, I sat in a hot box while they threw. We were fully on breathing apparatus and in our fire gear, but to sit in that room while they threw wet hay layers and smoked it, and
wow.
you feel that heat, and you kind of go, oh yeah, 800-900 degrees, even in a fire suit, no bueno.
No bueno.
No.
It's not good. Hats off to those that do it, to all the firefighters in the world, especially those here in California, because we have had, today's actually not looking too bad, but man, Wednesday was bad. Wednesday was like, it was foggy here in Sacramento.
Oh, wow.
The smoke was so thick. You're just driving around, you just felt like you were in this haze. But today's nice and blue outside. Fire's still going though.
Even as we came back from Oregon, all across the Western U.S., the smoke has been horrible. And the media was reporting that, even back east, that smoke was bad. We're getting some rainstorms now, so hopefully, but then I hear that we're going to get another heat wave.
Well, it's a drought-filled year here in California once again, and which is sad because we didn't really have. Usually, you get the drought period, and then you have a nice wet period. We didn't really get.
Right.
We got a couple of years, but not really that much, and all of a sudden it's dry again. So, what are we gonna do? But it's all fine. I mean, hell, mandates are going to come in. Mask mandates are probably going to come back. COVID Delta variant. It's just a crazy world.
We talked to one of the folks working at the Yellowstone Visitor Center and in the gift shop, and she was beside herself. She was very upset, and she was like, well, starting tomorrow, all of the mask mandates are coming back. And she was just like, I guess we're going backwards again. And
they were limiting people coming in.
Yeah, there was literally in the gift shop, in food places, maximum capacity. I mean, it's a large building, 25 people at a time.
Jeez.
When someone would come out, one person could go in. And even the employees are just like, they're shaking their heads. That's a whole nother podcast.
Well, Los Angeles Unified School District announced like they're going to be doing weekly tests of all students and teachers for COVID, right? The weekly tests. Like,
what kind of tests? Because now they've already said that none of the tests. We're going to go down another rabbit hole here.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's the whole thing. Yeah, there's a whole another show there someday.
Yeah.
So Jeeps, all right. So we had the 4xe. We talked a little bit about the 4xe. Really didn't discover anything else other than the fact that, guys, the suspension, the 3.5-inch game changer suspension works with it. It's not 3.5 inch though. It's about 600 pounds heavier. It is well distributed, but it is 600 pounds heavier than a Rubicon edition. And that's primarily because you have the battery pack right under the rear seat. So you don't have as much storage options in a 4xe because your rear seats don't fold down the same way. So you end up having that big, massive battery pack there. But I didn't get a chance to drive it. Those that did said, OMG. Like, it has the force, that torque off the line. It is a fun rig to drive, purely with that 2.0 and the electric motor. When it engages, it engages. You can set torque on it, so you can actually dial up or set how much torque you want to use. And I guess it's part of. And I didn't drive it. This is all secondhand. But so like if you are wheeling or you're going up some rocks or doing like that, I guess you can do a little bit more adjustment on it, right? It is a pretty cool rig. So we'll have whole new skid plate system for it. because they moved the crossmember back, and I believe we're working on a skid plate that's a little bit more full body. So it'll be pretty cool to see how that all comes together. But yeah, it's an interesting rig.
Well, and I saw a couple of stories today. That one of them is up on ModernJeeper.com. They are halting production on the Gladiator, and I just want to leave that there for a second because I think it freaks people out when they see. And that was the article that I saw was Jeep halts production of the Gladiator, and of course I had to look. Well, yeah, it's because there's no microchips. And they're just shutting down the line periodically as they get caught up. But there's a lot of models that this is affecting, and a lot of manufacturers, GM, Ford, all of them. They're all having to slow production of some things. The Wrangler, interestingly, is not halting production. They still have enough microprocessors for it. But I also did see an article about the 4xe that prices are going to start to go up. And like everything that we're seeing, even though it's not quote unquote inflation related, the cost of things is becoming more expensive. So I think that we're going to see, just like we did with some used car pricing and that kind of thing, raw materials, those prices are going to increase, and we're going to see an increase in an already kind of an extremely high priced vehicle when you start talking about a 392 or even the 4xe or a Gladiator. A Gladiator, if the diesel option comes into play at some point, you're going to be talking about 75 grand.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. It's interesting to see where these are going. What did we say that the Wagoneer is like $120,000 vehicle? Right?
Yeah.
We're looking at the Grand Cherokee L for us, just to have that third row, but I got to go and get a chance to actually go and look at one, which is going to happen anytime soon. But the Wagoneer, I mean, who's going to? I don't know. But then again, what's the comparison? What does a Cadillac Escalade XTV, like the extended version, what does that run? I don't know what the retail price on that is these days.
I mean, Jeep isn't going to create a vehicle and just have it be so much more expensive. It's going to be playing in that same ballpark. So
yeah,
I kind of understand some of these guys who are overlanding in their I don't know, their little SUV, Subaru, Toyota,
right,
whatever they have.
It's like, dude, now I get 50 miles a gallon too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the mileage that John gets is incredible. I mean, both.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So, well, there's plenty of Jeeping going on. So you guys are going to go from All-4-Fun. What's after All-4-Fun?
So after All-4-Fun, because of the dates of our upcoming Rubicon trip, so let's talk a little bit about that. This year's event that's going to be coming up probably the end of this month is a little different. This isn't our typical Modern Jeeper signature event. This will be more of a MetalCloak event, Modern Jeeper sponsored, but it's going to be a little different. We've had some challenges this year, and the Rubicon Trail is a busy place.
Right, and I'm glad you brought it up because the way it's happening, there was a lot of work on trying to make the Rubicon and do the same event we did 2 years ago, right? Which was phenomenal and probably one of the best Rubicon events and trips I've ever had. And we tried to bring all those elements back together. And the challenge was that those elements weren't coming back together.
Right.
So basically what's happening is Modern Jeeper Adventures is helping to coordinate a MetalCloak run. It's going to be a small run. It's going to be priced appropriately. I mean, this is going to be a phenomenal deal for 5 rigs. And that's 5 rigs, however many people. It could be 4 people per rig, but 5 rigs plus our group. So we're only going to pick 5 rigs to come with us. Now it's going to be picked because what we're going to do is we're going to accept the registration should go live on Monday. So by the time you guys hear this podcast, registration will already be live. And that registration will allow for 20 registrations. You have to have large tires. You have to have a built rig. You have to have experience too. We're
You
not
have to,
taking,
but this isn't a first timers run to the
no,
Rubicon and we get you through there.
exactly.
This is going to be a pretty special event where it's kind of jeeping the old way. Like it's you get yourself there. We're going to take care of some of the intro meals, lunch and
Right.
dinner the first night, but then you're kind of on your own. We'll be there for support and rock rolling and stacking if you need some help. But other than that, this is going to be a little bit raw.
It is. And the first night we're going to be staying at one of our guys. MetalCloak is the name of his rig. Tom, he has a cabin up there. So we're staying at his cabin. We'll be actually going in through Loonside. We'll have breakfast at MetalCloak, get a sack lunch, go in through Loonside, go up, and then go out Wentworth. So in one day, you're going to go through the bowl and out Wentworth Springs, which is, if you haven't done Wentworth Springs at all, it's an amazing part of the trip too. Go out, camp, and go back in through Wentworth the second day, go through, end up at I believe it's Spider on the second night.
Or Buck, maybe.
Which if that all comes together, but end up out there. Then from there, we'll go and do the Springs, and then we'll go out. So it'll be a multi-day event. It's going to still be an incredible event, but we're only providing food for the first day, possibly breakfast on the second day. But then we'll go from there, and it's going to be you provide your own stuff. We're going to guide you. We're going to be there. We're going to support. We're all going to be there. But consider it more of a MetalCloak fan run as opposed to a
Modern Jeeper signature
adventure.
Yeah.
Now that being said, we're now discussing moving the Modern Jeeper Adventure signature event because we still want to do one this year into another time, maybe possibly before SEMA or after. So right around that time frame, we'll see how it comes together. But we still want to do a signature event then, and that will be allow a number of rigs, probably 12 registered rigs to come together, the kind of the way we did it before. But for this case, we're just going to do this little one here in August. It'll be at the end of the month. I will not be able to be on it because now I've got, the nice injury here. So it's going to make it.
And Jesse and I will be away as well. But Scott Becker and a good group of guys. I kind of like this. I like the idea of this being a raw event, and maybe there'll be other raw events, and we'll have still the signature events like we've normally produced. We're still going to do well. There's still talk, and we'll have to combine. We'll have to look at some dates and some calendar issues with Death Valley. Sometime in November, we may have 2 trips coming up. So I know this is you guys don't get to plan very well, our listeners, because these events kind of happen on the fly. But that's kind of the cards we've been dealt with this year. We're having to put things together and change and manipulate them as we do, as we can. So there's some really good stuff out there, and some really good places to go and visit. So yeah, so hang on to your hats, and thanks for bearing with us.
Absolutely. So it'll be fun. We just get a chance to go out and Jeep, and every chance to Jeep is a great chance.
Right.
But once again, I was back in the mode of Jeeping. I mean, I wanted to do the Colorado event. I was like, that was my goal. I was going to do the Colorado event with you guys. I was going to do the Rubicon event this year. And then I go and do something to my foot.
What's up with that? Your timing is just all wrong.
Yeah, it's never good timing. But that being said, it's fine. I get to live vicariously through all of you guys and all of you listeners out there as well. Love it when you're sharing comments. Love it when you're sending posts, and thank you as well for all the good well wishes from our fans for my surgery and healing fast. I'm sure it will help getting all that positive flow from you. Okay, well, you guys got a lot to do. I know you're packing up and just about to head out again. So thanks again for hopping on, and for all of our listeners out there, just keep Jeeping. There's just no better time than to be out there. Get out there, Jeep, and use your rig. Be a modern Jeeper. Respect the land, respect the people, help others, and go check out some of these new trails and good things. We have just coming up around the corner, which we'll talk about here, but Sierra Trek is coming the week of the 8th. and MetalCloak's heavily sponsoring that one. That's a great one. I talked about the Fort Ice event. This is a perfect chance if you ever want to do Fort Ice Trail, Sierra Trek, running up the Fort Ice Trail, having a team at every winch hill, and there's 5 winch hills. Having a team at every winch hill is huge to be able to get through that and actually experience that event. So there's still registration spots available, but it's going to be another one of these packed events because people just want to get out.
Well, and the schedule just gets crazier and crazier. We after All-4-Fun, we'll be back for a few days. We actually have I don't know if I should talk about it or not, but we have some Milestar stuff going on, and it's an internal an event with one of our friends at Milestar, and them as a sponsor of an event, and that's right before Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, which will have one of the guys. I think John Slayton's coming out to Tennessee to help us with that show.
Yep.
We'll be back in Colorado. We've got the Colorado Modern Jeeper event. We've got We've got a Rim Rocker, all female event coming up. We've got so much going on. Hopefully we'll do a better job of getting some of these amazing places up online so you can see them and experience them vicariously through us, or join us on an upcoming adventure.
I think we need to get like another person whose only job it is to document your activities.
Oh, we have so much content. Like
I know
and I'm like, oh gosh, we're so far behind. But I guess, in the winter months when we have 6 feet of snow, maybe we'll get a chance to spin some of that out. But
well, that's the way the magazines always do it. They gather content for an event this year, and then it appears a month before the event next year.
Right. Yeah. Create some interest, right?
Exactly. All right. Well, hey guys, if you haven't signed up for the San Juans of Colorado, do so. Registration is open, and there's still some spots available. That's going to be a great event. The podcast last week discussed it, and you got a chance to hear what the trip was that Corey and Jessy took last year on the San Juans, and that was just an amazing trip. You're not doing the same thing. Nope. You're not going to try to hit 5 Badge of Honor trails in one day.
No. It'll be a lot different. And you know what? If you were to sign up for it next year, it'll be different again. That's one thing that's nice about our trips is we're not going to take you the same place, and maybe my hair will be longer. You just never know all the changes.
How much is he going to let this beard grow out?
I don't know. It's really kind of weird. I'm not sure. I've started to comb it in some interesting directions, and that's kind of freaking me out.
I just keep telling you, I got to get you and Fred and Grandpa all together lined up now.
Right.
You look at this, go, this is what you're going to look like in 20 years. All right. Well, Modern Jeepers, thank you again for joining us in another amazing episode. You can reach me and Matson at MetalCloak.com, Corey at MetalCloak.com, Jessy at MetalCloak.com, and of course, ModernJeeperAdventures.com, ModernJeeperForum.com, and ModernJeeper.com, where you can check out all great articles. And there's so much content on there. You can go and see all kinds of the old stuff that's been in there, reviews, tech tips, all kinds of stuff. You get a fun time browsing through there. Quick note: stay off of TikTok. It's an hour killer. I had to look at it because we're trying to decide if MetalCloak's going to be on it at all and doing stuff. And
I put your Gladiator on the other day.
Yeah, you did?
Yeah, I did.
TikTok?
Oh, yes.
Gosh. Well, I haven't run across it yet. I did kill.
There goes another hour of your life.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in there looking at TikTok on my pad while the kids are watching cartoons, and I can't do anything because I'm sitting on the couch. And I'm like, I just killed an hour.
Later. Oh.
Yeah.
I'm like,
what time is it?
I have no idea what I just learned. Did I learn anything? I don't know. TikTokers beware.
Yeah.
And, well, that being said, Modern Jeepers, have fun out there, and we'll see you on the trails.
Cheers.
See ya.